The Dershow.
So one of the people who was injured was the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon. Now, why would the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon be carrying a Hezbollah transmission and communication device? Because, of course, he's a member of Hezbollah, and he's a leader of Hezbollah. Iran and Hezbollah are the same. If you ever needed proof of that, the proof was in the blowing up of the Iranian ambassador's communication device. And I think it sent a very powerful message that Israel has the technical capacities to fight back, despite what the UN voted today. The United Nations voted today in a vote of 124 to 14, 124 to 14, with 43 abstentions, that Israel has no right to defend itself against the attack of October 7th or terrorism. It voted to deny Israel the arms necessary to defend itself. At the same time, in the resolution, voted on by 124 nations, including some that you probably support, like Ireland, voted to, and New Zealand. The resolution never mentioned Hamas. It's as if Hamas didn't exist. Never mentioned Hezbollah. Never mentioned October 7th. Never mentioned the hostages. It's as if Israel just decided to attack in Gaza without any justification whatsoever. This is the UN. Yeah, there were 43 abstentions. The United States voted against it. The United States, along with Argentina, the Czech Republic, and Hungary. Those are the only major countries. The other ones were little island nations. But so many, 124 voted for it. New Zealand, which is a settler colonialist country, a totally illegitimate nation, a nation that sent English people on boats who had never been anywhere near New Zealand to take over and murder the Maoris and the local population, to ethnically cleanse the island and take it over and make it a completely white colonialist settler regime. They're the ones who have the chutzpah to condemn Israel, along with Spain, Belgium, Ireland, and 120 other nations. But the worst abuse occurs from nations that didn't have the courage to vote no. They abstained. Some of them spoke out against it, but they abstained. They don't want to be perceived as voting against Hamas or Hezbollah. Oh my God, what a terrible thing that would do. And so many countries abstained. The Ukraine abstained. Well, from now on, I'm abstaining when it comes to support for Ukraine. No, I'm not going to vote for support for Ukraine. I support Ukraine. I hope the Russians lose, but I'm abstaining. You abstain on Israel. I abstain on Ukraine. Canada abstained. Canada, which has had vicious increases in anti-Semitism, abstained. The UK, which has its own horrible problems of dealing with free speech and with immigrants, abstained. Great show of courage. Ukraine, Canada, UK that invented colonialism, and you know, the sun never set on the British Empire and imperialism. They have the chutzpah to abstain. You know, it was Abba Eban many years ago who once said that if Algeria introduced a resolution that the earth was flat, this is the UN, he said this at the UN, if Algeria introduced a resolution that the earth is flat and that Israel flattened it, it would win. And I think he actually came up with the exact number, 124 to 14 with 43 abstentions. He even named the countries. Nothing has changed. The UN is worthless. It's worse than worthless. It does evil things. It has become the Der Stürmer, the kind of Nazi propaganda vehicle of Germany in the 1930s. And as far as I'm concerned, I see the UN out of my window every day, and I have a hard time sometimes keeping down my food. I would be very happy if the United States were to leave the United Nations. I don't know if Trump gets elected, whether he would favor that. Certainly, we shouldn't be paying for the United Nations, and we shouldn't be having it in New York. It'd be much better if it were in Tehran, or in Beirut, or in Gaza City. But it shouldn't disgrace New York. We know the UN will not change. It will be the same. It will vote 124 to 14 with 43 abstentions no matter what the vote is. If it involves Israel, that's all the UN does, is condemn Israel. It condemns and attacks Israel more than all of the other countries in the world combined. Israel, which has one of the most moral foreign policies, moral armies, moral concerns for civilians. Has there been a resolution condemning Iran? I must have missed that. Or condemning China, or condemning Cuba when it was murdering people? I think I missed all of that. Have there been resolutions condemning the genocide that's going on in Sudan and Darfur? No, no. How did Sudan vote? Let's take a look and see if we can see how Sudan voted. I'm having trouble reading this, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if it voted against Israel while conducting its own genocide. I'll be back with you with that vote. Sudan. Yeah, it voted to condemn Israel while starving its own people. The motto of the UN should be hypocrisy and anti-Semitism. That's all it does, is it condemns Israel and engages in hypocrisy and fails to condemn real human rights violations. So shame on the United Nations, shame on those who support the United Nations. I used to be a member of the United Nations, I forget what it was called, Support Committee or United Nations, I don't know what. I used to wear a little sign supporting the UN when Arthur Goldberg, my former boss, was the U.S. representative to the UN. Today, I would not, and I don't think the UN serves any legitimate purpose, and I would end it. I would end all American relations with it, all American payment to it, and I would throw it the hell out of New York City.